Property Investing with Abby. On today's episode, we're talking about how do you rent a property out. But this is number one, you absolutely have to have this.
They will also check that they live where they say they live, where they've lived in the past.
Now, I don't just mean find a tenant. I mean, we're going to go into nitty gritty, what the property needs to have, your compliances, how to get a good tenant and how to get them off on that great start. I have a letting agent that manage all of my properties. Now, I know letting agents are a bit like Marmite. You either love them or you hate them, but there are lots of very, very good letting agents out there. Now, the reason why I have a letting agent look after all of my properties is, I don't know if you know this, but there's 177 pieces of residential lettings, legalities, laws that cover this sector. So you really need to know what you're doing, and you're not going to go and study 177 pieces of what you need to know. So I always think it's better to hand over to the experts. I also want a passive portfolio where I can go away and not worry and have somebody here that's looking after my tenants, my properties. So my first piece of advice would get a good letting agent on board. Now, I've brought mine today. So this is Vicky from Diamond Estates, and Vicky manages all of our properties, not only for me, but lots of our property investors. So with Vicky today, we brought some of our paperwork and we're going to show you exactly what you need to do to be compliant and to rent out your property. Now, the first thing you need to understand is all property rentals are governed by the Housing Health and Safety Rating System. So that's what the council are looking for to make sure that you're doing everything you should and you're assessed on that model. But basically what it means for us normal landlords is you need to provide a property that's fit and safe from hazards. So there's not really, it's a bit grey area because there's not really a lot more around it, but that's that. And then legally, you've got a care of duty to provide certain certificates that we know makes the property safe. So the first thing that everybody should know is a gas safety certificate. And we've got one, haven't we?
Yep.
And did this one pass?
Yes.
So this is a gas safety certificate. This is valued for 12 months.
Yes, a year,
yeah. So every year you have to have this done. How much does it normally cost, Vicky?
It's roughly around £65–70.
£65–70. You have it done, and then you know the tenant and the house is going to be safe. And then what sometimes do, if they pick up any small remedial work, or they will advise you and they'll help you get it corrected. But this is number one, you absolutely have to have this, because you wouldn't want your tenant suffering or in the property, would you? So yeah, that's first things first, but it's not too much money and it needs to be done yearly. So next thing we have to have now is an EPC, isn't it?
It is.
And would you explain to everyone what an EPC is?
Right, so the EPC is your Energy Performance Certificate, and that gives you your overall energy rating for the property. So for a rentable property, it needs to be an E or above.
These are normally done every 10 years unless you're having work done to the property, but it's very important you have one of these if you're going to rent it out or sell it. And for the tenant, they're going to have a look, so it'll give them a bit of an idea about paying their bills and things. And this is quite useful as well if you're a landlord, because it helps you understand what you could do, what actions you could do to improve the energy performance of your property. Now, at the minute it is an E and above, but we know over the next couple of years it might move to a D. So if you're buying any property or looking at any property that is around an E, you definitely need to think about maybe doing some remedial work before, just to get that D to be safe. So next safety certificate we need is an electrical installation condition report. So this is your electrical report for your property. And this is quite a big report, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Should we show this one?
Yeah, definitely. So it's usually around 6 to 7 pages. And it will catalogue every single electrical item, electrical inlet, all your wiring, and everything you could possibly imagine in your property.
And I just had to have this and some work's done at my buy-to-let, haven't I? So they picked up a faulty consumer unit in the garage of all places. So the main house has been wired on a consumer unit, and there's another one in the garage that was faulty, so they've put that right. But yeah, this will either pass you, put you as satisfactory, or say that there needs to be work done. And again, you can't rent without this. How long is this one valid for?
EICRs are usually valid for 5 years.
And all these certificates, because you've got a 1 year, 10 year, 5 years, you have it on your system, don't you? So I get a reminder probably normally 3 months before certificate's due that I need to take action and do the certificate.
Yeah, absolutely, we do remind everybody.
But again, having safe electrics is important, because what you don't want to do is a fire that can hurt your tenant, can, burn down the house, so that is an important one. And then the last thing you need to rent a property, which I know Vicky's hot on, is insurance, landlord insurance, which is huge, isn't it? So we've got one here. How much do they normally cost?
So they usually cost about £100 to £200, depending on what the property is, where it is, what use you use it for. Obviously, in this sense, it's a buy-to-let. But yeah, that's roughly about the amount.
What we always say is go and speak to a really good insurance broker because they can help you with what type of insurance you need, but it doesn't cost a lot. Obviously, it needs to be the right insurance because if you own the property in a company versus in your personal name, there's a slight change there, but you need to make sure that property is insured and you're insured from anything the tenant may or may not sue you for. Finally, to get your property ready to rent is you would have a walkthrough and make sure it's fit and safe. For example, one of my properties is more of an older style and it didn't have a banister in, and I knew children were moving in, so we had to put a banister in there for the children because it's quite a steep stairs and literally a child could, well, it could have been an adult, drops off the side, so we've had to put the thing in there ready to rent it. So remember, the regs are, it's got to be safe and free from hazards. So we knew that was a hazard, we got that. And then clean and tidy and ready for your new tenant. The next step of the journey of getting your property ready to rent out is figuring out how much you're going to rent it for. So Vicky, how do we figure that out?
So usually we go on to Zoopla, Rightmove, any of that kind of websites, and you can run comparisons on different properties in the area. So we would usually go on and run a report that will tell you this type of property with this many bedrooms that's in this standard will usually rent for this much.
And recently, what have we been seeing with rents?
They're increasing dramatically. You could be getting another £50, £100, £200 as to what they were 6 months ago.
Yeah, because at the minute there's a huge housing shortage. There's been a housing shortage for the last few years and we're not building enough houses. The population's growing, people are living older, and then chucking COVID and pandemic, people want to have their own space, so it's massive shortage on available rentals, and we can put a rental on the market and it's gone within days, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can have a lot of applicants going for it. So the good news for the landlord is we get to cherry pick the best person, don't we? Because we have that many to pick from, we can get the best one. And it's great because rents are increasing. One of the properties we've just put on, last year you would have got $550 rent for it. This year you're getting $775, so that's a huge increase, which is fab. But get your rental right. What I would always say is put it on for a tiny bit more than what you want, because the tenants can come to the viewings and they will negotiate it and they can, bring it down with you. You can always go down, but you can never go up. So always go and think, I actually want this, and then, do it and pick your tenant. So the next thing that you would do is you would market the property. So where do you market the property?
Usually on Rightmove and Zoopla, but you can use OpenRent, Facebook and other places like that as well.
But normally you don't have to do much because literally when you put it on Rightmove and Zoopla, you get loads of calls, loads of viewings. So finding tenants isn't the problem, is it?
No, not at all. We have a lot of interest.
The biggest challenge is finding the right tenant that isn't going to be a nightmare tenant, isn't going to cause you arrears, damage, etc. So you market the property, you get a pre-application from anybody that's wanting to apply, and then the next bit is you reference your tenant. And I went to an online networking and I was flabbergasted at the amount of private landlords that weren't referencing their tenants. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the most important thing to do. So we've got a reference here that we've got, and this is from a really good reference provider, and they really do in-depth checks, don't they?
Yeah, really.
So can you talk us through exactly what they
usually
check?
When we put somebody on our reference system, they will check firstly that is the correct person. They will validate their bank details. They will also check that they live where they say they live, where they've lived in the past. They'll go to their employer and they will check their income reference against what they said that they've earned, and they will also check with the last landlord. It will also come up if they have any CCJs, any bankruptcies, any issues like that will be on this report.
And they do the right to rent checks because there's rules on right to rent in the UK. okay. They will also check that they are definitely full-time employed, so you know if they're not employed full-time or if their circumstances going to change. But they check anti-fraud as well, so they will check their IDs and make sure it is the person that's speaking to you, because we know there's masses of fraud that goes on in the rental market. People trying to rent things that isn't them and then putting it on Airbnb and things. You have to be really careful about that. But this system does it all, and then it marks it red or or green. Green's fine, it's acceptable. Red, it isn't. This person we're looking at has had a CCJ, but it's been satisfied 2 years ago. So as a landlord, you'd probably look at that. Credit rating's good now, CCJ's gone, and you can take the view. They're full-time employed, they can afford the rent, so these look like good tenants. Yeah. And then the next probably step is, because you normally meet them at the viewing, and when I used to do this, you really get a feeling for them, don't you? You know if they're going to be a good tenant, what they are, so you go with your gut as well. So go with your gut, good referencing, and then you can pick the right tenant that's going to be in your house. Once you've picked your tenant, you've got them sorted, it's time to get them moved in. Now you should only move them in when you've got a tenancy agreement, schedule of condition and inventory, and they've signed everything and paid their money. Now, we used to take deposits, but we don't anymore. We do a zero deposit scheme, which is so much easier for the tenant, easier for you, and it's like an insurance cover. So we do that more. So once that's all done and sorted, we can then hand over the keys. Now, once they're in, everybody's circumstances can change, so it's really important that we do some checks to make sure they're a good tenant. So when would you normally do property visit checks?
The first time we visit is within 4 weeks of their move-in, just to make sure that they have settled in well, nothing's going wrong. Are they in arrears? Are they managing the property well? Does it look a mess? Are they breaking things? Basically just a general check to make sure that everything is okay. After that initial check, we then go 4 times a year, so we go every 3 months and we just do an inspection report that details every single room, if there's any problems, if there's any maintenance issues, and we just keep on top of it that way.
And normally doing this, you can pick up tenants, can't you? Any bad habits that are starting. Like there's, and I don't know why, but there's some sort of thing that says a lot of tenants can cause damp and black mold because they're not airing things, opening windows. So this check can check that that's being done and the property's looked after. Now, in a normal tenancy agreement, your tenant will be responsible with keeping things in good repair, reporting any damage, and doing stuff like gutters, cleaning windows. So the letting agent will check that's all being taken care of. If not, they will remind the tenant of their rules and responsibilities. So we've got a property visit report here. So we've got pictures of the front and the back of the house, and we've just got some comments. And for example, we've got the bathroom here. Is the grout clean? Because we want the tenant to keep on top of that. Is there any condensation? Is there any pets? Because if you didn't agree for them to have pets in the beginning and you suddenly find there's 2 massive dogs there, you might have something to say. Do we have the gas and electrical cert, which we would have had in the beginning anyway? And are the smoke CO detectors working? And then you've got pictures of the living room, kitchen, and the inspector's comments. So overall, this one was fine. It was a really good one, wasn't it? Everything's tidy, no sign of mold, and you can tell they're really taking good care of the property, which is good. That's what we want. So probably the last thing to talk to you about is if you're gonna think about renting your property out and you've decided that you're not going to self-manage because there's so much you need to get done, that you're going to have a letting agent manage it for you. How do you find a good letting agent? Because there's lots out there, isn't there? There's some bad ones out there. They quickly get bad reputations. What should you be looking at? The first thing I always look at is fees, because there's some crazy amounts of fees being charged for this. I've seen an agent recently charge 6% plus that as the rental income coming in, and I've seen it go as high as 15%. I've also seen an agent where they said they charge 6%, but then they charge you £895 for property setup, a new tenancy £600, property inspections are £200 every time, and then when your tenant comes to renew the tenancy, so say they've been in there 6 months and like, yeah, I'm really happy, I'm going to sign another one for another 6 months, they charge you again. Which I think that's a lot, isn't it? Yes, we want to pay them because letting agents do a good, valuable job and look after our tenants, but also it's got to be fair. So Diamond Estates charge a flat fee, don't they? There's no other costs, no sign-on costs, no cost for inspections, none for renewals. What do Diamond Estates charge?
So we charge a standard rate of 10% plus VAT, but like Abby said, nothing else. There's no charge at all extra to that.
And for that, you do everything full management,
absolutely,
isn't there?
everything. That's full management.
Because with letting agents, you can have tenant find only, where they'll find you the tenant, get all your paperwork and everything set up and then hand you, and it's your responsibility to collect the rent. Or they'll do full management. Some do a pick and choose, but I think you'd probably need full management really, that's what you want. And if it's only 10% and they're keeping you safe, secure, looking after the tenants, because some tenants go in the property and they're great, some tenants you hear from every month because they've forgotten the bank details of their rent, or the gutter's flying off, or something's happening. You know them, don't you?
Yeah.
And I tell you something, as a landlord, and as I'm building my portfolio quite large, I don't want to be taking calls, I don't want to be chasing tenants' rents. I'd rather use my time to build and put more properties in to be managed than actually managing them. So yeah, I don't think 10% is a really bad trade-off for that.
So basically they could ask other landlords if they're in some kind of network. Obviously they know different people, so they can get their opinion on the best letting agent they've used. You can check Rightmove and Zoopla, see how quick they move their properties along from going onto the market to being let agreed. Or you could even ask to see examples of their paperwork. So can I see an inspection report? Can we see an example tenancy agreement? And just go from there.
You need to make sure your letting agent is compliant. So the letting agent needs to have a client account, client money protection, because the rent they're taking isn't their rent, it's going to be your rent, so it's held in a client account. You want to make sure they've got insurance, anti-money laundering, and all of that good stuff to have a really good letting agent. And the really good letting agents are with governing bodies. But it's really easy to pop a post out on social media and ask people what they've seen, or ask the letting agent and say, hi, I'd really like to go with you, but can I speak to one of your other landlords just to see? And then the other thing I would say is most people step away. Once they've got a letting agent, they say goodbye and you don't see them, but you still need to manage your letting agent. It's like anybody that you're using, like your accountant, your solicitor. So you need to manage your letting agent and make sure they're doing a good job for you. So every 3 months, I've got it in my diary. I know when my inspection reports are due, and I know to chase if I've not received them. Diamond are usually normally good and I get my inspection reports, but I know when it is. I know each month when I receive my rent, and I get a good report from Diamond telling me everything that's happened. Is there anything that's happened for the tenant? Has the tenant phoned? But it's all in there, and I take the time to read that, and then I speak to the team if I need anything. So I hope that's all right, guys, and I hope it's really shown you how you rent out your property to a tenant. And this is what the standard should be for landlords, and we know there's a lot of rogue landlords out there, but you should be aiming to deliver a good quality, safe home to the tenant, because you're going to get paid for that. So that's so important, and we want to make sure we inspire as many people to be good landlords as possible. So I hope you like that, guys. If you haven't already, subscribe, like the video, and say hi to me and Vicky. And I'll see you next week.